Okay. All right. So here we go, Noah. Okay, you're about to go into your last section, and I'm so proud of how hard you have worked at this. We're looking at solving for triangles that aren't right triangles. Okay, that's why when it says oblique right here, that's what we're doing. We're just solving for triangles that aren't right triangles. And this is what is called the law of sines, to where if I know a side and an angle and either another angle or another side, then I can find out everything about this triangle. All right. But I have to set it all up to where I take the sides, all stay on the top. Okay. Side A is here, B, and C. Then I'm looking at the angles right here, and I get the sine of A, and then B over the sine of B. And that's just the simple in your calculator. All right. These are proportions, and so they all equal each other. So uh, when you know three of these, you can find everything. All right. So if we scroll down here to our example, okay, we know a side and two angles. So we can find the other parts. All right. So I have sine of A over, or A, side A over the sine of 71. And then I have B, okay, over the sine of, wait, I'm sorry, no, 15. 15 over the sine of 67. Or I could have set this up as B over the sine of 42 equals 15 over the sine of 67. Okay, so then I can cross multiply and I can find B. All right. And then I have law of sines again over here, to where I have two angles and a side. Now, the only time that the law of sines will not work, okay, all right, is to where they're talking about the law of sines in an ambiguous case, to where this is side, side, angle, okay, as opposed to side, angle, side, or side, 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 you use law of cosines. All right. And what this is meaning is if I have an angle, a side, and an angle, or an angle, angle, side, then I can use law of cosines or law of sines. Sorry. I can still use the law of sines when I'm given a side, side, and an angle. Okay. I just have to do some extra work there. And we'll do that when we get to it. Okay. But the law of sines is what you'll use a predominant part of. And so you just set these up, okay, to where in the first one, you're looking for side A, so A over 71, okay, B or 15, and we just take 180 minus these right here and get 67. So 15 over the sine of 67, okay, cross multiply and divide, and we have our sides. All right, down here of 15.4 and 10.9. All right, and then again, your example is the same thing over here. All right, to where I have an angle, and a side, so I can use law of sines. Okay, I can find my third angle automatically, and then pop everything in A, okay, which is what we're looking for, over the sine of 64, 13, okay, 13 over the sine of 41. Okay, they jump these around. I think this is supposed to be 14 or 41. I think that's wrong because this one, yeah, this one wouldn't be 64 if that's 14. So it should be 41. Okay, so this is the law of sines. Now, your next one, okay, is going to be just an intro into, all right, the law of cosines. All right, let me shrink this up. There we go. All right, where we just covered the law of sines. Okay, and so now you're looking at law of cosines. All right, now if you are needing the angle, okay, to where if you're needing the angle, you're going to use these equations down here. Now, let me just show you some of the things that they have that are in common. I have b squared, I have c squared, and then I have minus a. Okay, so I have all three of my sides accounted for, but look at where the side is as opposed to the angle. So my side always goes at the end, my angle goes right here. Then B from here, C from here goes there. All right, and so that pattern is going to continue all the way down to where I have cosine of B. B is at the end, the other two sides are here, squared, and the other two sides are here. And then cosine of C, and again, this is where we're looking for the angle using the law of cosines. If we're using the law of cosines and we're needing to find the side, okay, well, we are basically going to take this side here, and if we square it, it's equal to, now again, look at what's common. The other two sides are accounted for, minus 2 times the other two sides, B and C, times the cosine, okay, of the angle. All right, cosine of the angle. Then b squared. The other two sides are accounted for, minus 2 times these two sides, times the cosine of the angle across from the side that we're looking at. And then again, c squared, same thing. The other two sides are accounted for, minus 2 times those other two sides, and then the cosine of the angle opposite this one. Okay? And once we go through and solve some of these will start to kind of take shape and you'll be able to see. All right? So let's look at problem 1. Okay. All right, so let's rotate this first. Okay. So there we go. And then oops, it's frozen on me. Shoot. Okay, so all right. So let me try to go to the view, zoom, zoom out. There we go. Okay, maybe now it will work. Okay, so now they're wanting us to solve for AC. Okay, so they're wanting us to solve for this whole side right here. Okay, so I know an angle. Okay, I know this angle. I need to find this one because I'm working with this side. So I'm going to use side A over the sine of A is equal to, okay, and so C is going to equal 180 minus 83.5 and 42.22. All right. So, oops, there we go. All right. So, once I solve for this, and let me grab my calculator real quick. So I have 180. Okay. Oops. Where did my calculator go on my phone? There we go. Okay. So I'm going to take 180 minus 83.5 minus 42.22, and I have 54.28. So that gives me angle C. Okay. Because we always have to use sides opposite the angles, sides opposite the angles, sides opposite the angles. So we're going to use AB over the sine of B is equal to C. Oops. Let me erase that. Yeah. There we go. To where we have C over sine of C. All right. So we know all three angles. Okay. So we know 54.28. Okay. So we have the opposite side here, 83.5, opposite side here. Okay. So it's C and C, B and B. So we're looking for B, so that's going to be our X over sine of 83.5. All right, equals C, okay, which is 1.7 over the sine of 54.28. Okay, and I'm running out of space there, but we'll see it play out. Okay, sine. So now just cross multiply and divide. So x is equal to, okay, 1.7 times the sine of 83.5 over, okay, to where we multiply that, and then we take the sine of 54.28. Okay, and the answer that we get is, hang on just 1 second, we should get something around 2.094. Okay, but put this in your calculator and make sure that that's what you get. If you don't get it, okay, send me a message. Okay, but that's what you should get. All right, so again, if we know two angles, okay, we're able to solve here. All right, so now let's move on to question 2. What is this? So this is going to be 14 open. Okay, so first we need to rotate to the left. There we go. And then Let me get it within view. There we go. Okay, so you get it almost there. All right. So now you have a lot of stuff here, okay? But we should be able to solve for it, okay? To be able to find what we need to find. All right? So they are asking us, okay, to find angle B. Okay? So this is our goal. This is what we're looking to find. Angle B right here. Okay? Now, in order to find angle B, all right, I'm going to need to know, all right, I know side B, all right, I know the angle, and I know this side. The problem is that I don't know this side right here, okay? And so I'm going to need this side, okay, to solve for it, all right? So eventually we're going to use the law of sines, okay, and solve for it to find angle B, all right? But the first thing we need to do is use this formula right here that I talked about at the beginning. This is delving into the law of cosines. So I have side A, okay, which I know, and that is 4.25. Okay, so 4.25. Oops, come on. Work with me a little bit, computer. Okay, 4.25 squared, okay, is equal to, all right, we know B, still need to know, okay, still need to know this other side here, all right? So I have, now how your professor is doing this is that he's finding the other sides and he's moving it. Um, this does work, okay? And don't get me wrong, it does work, okay? But it's it's a lot of heavy lifting. All right, so I prefer to keep it, okay, to where we just use the formula. Now, if you're preferring to use this formula here, then I'll be glad to explain that to you tomorrow. But I think this will work for you. All right, so let me go here. All right, so we are needing to know this side, okay? Still don't know this angle, all right? Which, again, if we knew this side, we'd be able to solve this, or if we knew this angle right here, we would be able to solve it, all right? So we're looking for, we're going to use, we're going to call this, since this is angle C, we're going to call this side C. So we're going to use C squared is equal to, okay, we know A, okay, or I'm sorry, we know A, call this A because it's opposite angle A, is equal to 4.25 squared. Come on. Boy, my computer has just all of a sudden started to go super slow here. 4.25 squared plus this other side of 3.3 squared. Okay. Let me wait for it to pop up here. 3.3 squared minus 2. Okay, now we're going to multiply by these sides again. 4.25 maybe if I'm just going slower, it will help, times C, or times B, of 3.3. Okay, then we also have to multiply by the cosine, okay, of this side, which is 121, which you see right here. So if I do all of this, okay, if I take 4.25 squared plus 3.3 squared minus 2 times 4.25 times 3.3, okay, all right, times the cosine of 121, which again, just plug this straight into your calculator. Then you got to do something in order to make this work. Whatever your answer is, you have to take the square root because we're just looking for C. Okay, we're just looking for C. And so now once we do that, once we take the square root, we have C is equal to 6.59. Okay, 6.59. So now we found this side right there, 6.59. Maybe I will write it now. Okay. So now we can jump over to the law of sines. We have 6.59 over the sine of 121 equals 3.3 times the sine of x, which again, you'll multiply 3.3 times the sine of 21 divided by, and let me just write this out for you so you have it. So this is going to be the sine, okay, and when you type it in your new calculator, you have the sine of -1. Oops. Sine of -1 is equal to 3.3 times the sine of 121 all over 6.59. 6.59. Okay, and when you plug that in, you should get 25.42, which is this angle. Okay, so again, I know we're kind of sloshing through the mud here a little bit. It will start to speed up some for you, but this is your introduction into having, sometimes we have to use both the law of cosines and the law of sines.